what I'd like to go over in order to really discuss the challenges of dating for marriage and the increasing role in online dating within that process, the first thing I'll try to do is just go over the population statistics and to determine, do we have a problem today? The next item I'll go through is, how are people meeting in today's environment as a whole? Thirdly, what are the potential causes that are delaying people from getting married today? Finally, how to improve the chances of finding a spouse. Okay, so first of all, as far as starting off, the UJC National Jewish Population Survey in 2000 and 2001 said there were 1.1 million Jewish singles in the United States. That statistic has now changed, where there is approximately 1.85 million Jewish adults who are single in the US today. So clearly a tremendous increase, 750,000 additional Jewish singles today. Approximately 1.1 million are never married, 440,000 divorced, and 310,000 people are widowed. But is this really a problem? Because as a whole, the population has grown in the United States. So if the population is growing, is that an issue that there are just more singles? Maybe that's not an issue. Today, there are 44% of the people in the United States are single as well. It's 100 million unattached singles. So we're about tracking what's going on in the US. We're 43%, they're 44%, approximately the same thing. So is there really a problem of having people finding problems getting married, or is it just the population is growing? So I think this slide kind of tells a little bit more of the story and really gives you the impression that yes, there are additional challenges and society is changing what's going on. And that's the median age. That's the point where you get 50% of a gender married has changed significantly from 1960 to 2011. Back in 1960, by the age of 20, approximately 50% of the females were married. By the age of 23, 50% of the male adults were married in the United States as a whole. If you look at what that is today, it now has changed where it's not until 26 and a half that you get 50% of the women married. So it's gone up by over 6 years in the past, really 50 years. So that is clearly a change in overall demographics. As far as the men's side, same thing, about a 6-year change. Gone up from 22.8 years to almost 29 years. So there clearly is a change going on in society today. Back in 1960, it was a time that it might not have been proper for a man to even approach a woman without going ahead and being formally introduced. That concept, of course, seems a little bit silly today and clearly is not taking place. It used to be common for men and women to meet at parties and dances and being fixed up, as in my case was, on a blind date. That is still common today, but again, how people are meeting is in fact continuing to change. So how are people meeting today then? And how has it changed really over the past 50 years? So I gave a little bit in the title, online dating, whether it's through an app, whether it's through a website, whether it's through a social media outlet like Facebook, wasn't around in 1960, as there really weren't, computers weren't being used in everyone's homes. That is the biggest change I think that's taking place. So how are people meeting their currently significant other today? And this is a general survey that was done, not just the Jewish population, but as a whole. And they said between the ages of 18 to 34, when they were asked if someone was dating someone seriously, how did you meet somebody? The answer still came back, they still met through a common friend was the most common answer. And that's approximately almost 40% of the people. On a social setting, so whether meeting at an event or some other way, still significant, 22% met that way. Through work, not uncommon, also 18%. But the next two categories are what's really been introduced and starting to change things a lot. And what happened was you have 9.5% online dating, social media outlets like Facebook and Twitter, etc., another 5.8%. So almost 15% of the people now are meeting online. Again, this was done back in 2015, I'll even get it, then 2016, it's changed even more than this. But already 16% as of this survey was already starting to meet through an online medium. The biggest change, though, has also occurred among the youngest population. Basically, what I want to focus on here, that between 2013 and 2015, only a 2-year period, the number of young professionals between 18 and 24 that were using online apps or online sites tripled from 10% to 27%. So the youngest age range all of a sudden started really grabbing on to the use of online dating sites. Among the 25 to 34 remain pretty consistent, 35 to 44, a slight change, but the biggest change is occurring in the youngest population. So the number of adults is really starting to spike in that area. According to Match.com, though, if you go ahead and go 1 year later, and by the way, Match.com is the largest dating site out there today, they did a major survey, and what they said was that people using online dating sites are now up to 40 million people in the United States are using online dating sites. 40% now, 40% of the total adult population as of 2016. So again, that is continuing to change significantly, where even from 2015 to 2016, the numbers are starting to really go off the charts of people starting to use online dating sites and online apps. Okay, so is the ability to go ahead and now reach out to potentially 40 million people a good thing? Now all I have to do is click a button and I'm all of a sudden able to get in touch with people. Is that really a positive thing or not? The increasing usage of online dating sites and apps is really helping people if the average age has now gone up to almost 27, 28 years old. Are there in fact really sociological factors contributing to the rise in age ranges that has nothing to do with the online dating sites? And finally, how do we address these challenges and maybe find a significant other and overcome the issues that either online dating sites or sociological factors have introduced? So the first thing I think that has to be addressed is a change in attitude overall. And the change of attitude obviously is the attitude of, I have tons of choices, so why do I have to focus on what's in front of me? I'll just go to the next choice, the next opportunity. And there's an interesting book that's produced by Barry Schwartz. It's called The Paradox of Choice, Why More is Actually Less. And the idea behind that is, for online dating, there is the FOMO effect, the fear of missing out. And it is a true effect that people say, if you speak to singles today, that is a true feeling that people have today. And that feeling is, well, I just have to click one more person, swipe one more time, and maybe that'll lead me to a better person. And that fear of missing out is in fact causing a tremendous problem in society today. There's too much comparison going on. Well, I'll compare this profile to the next profile to the next profile. This causes discounting legitimate opportunities. If I didn't have 500 people being introduced to me, then maybe I'd consider the person that's really being suggested to me right up front. There's also paralysis of making a decision. Well, I'm not sure if this is the right one. Why should I waste my time? Let me go to the next person. Let me go to the next person. Again, that fear of missing out. If I say yes here, what am I missing out for the next person? And unfortunately, finally, when I do make a decision, people are finding less satisfaction. So if you're finding less satisfaction with your decision, and you can't even make the decision, this doesn't seem like a very positive thing going on. And that's, again, introduced by Barry Schwartz, and the idea of the paradox of choice. The next item, the human side of dating quite often is lost out. A case actually happened with a girl named Anna. Anna, and this is also a true case, Anna, a while back, met a guy named AY. They went on a date a week before the Seneca Singles event, and then decided not to go out again. Just so you know, a Seneca Singles event is a big weekend, 300 singles get together up at camp, and they just happened to go out the week before this event. Anna had never been on a singles event before, but she heard that this Seneca weekend was a good weekend to go on. AY and her both independently ended up on the singles weekend and ended up spending the entire Shabbaton together, despite the fact that when they had gone out the week before, they mutually decided they weren't a good fit for each other, because they saw on paper the items they discussed in the first date, which was a little superficial, were not in line with each other. So that first blind date, where they even had an opportunity to meet, if that was only because of the blind date, they never would have gone out again. But having the opportunity to see someone in action, see someone in an environment where they can get a chance to know the individual, that gave them the opportunity to go out, and they've been dating ever since, and they got engaged about 4 weeks ago. And by the way, Anna wasn't so far off, because if you look on paper, they were not a match. Anna is modern Orthodox liberal. She wears skirts and pants, only wants to partially cover her hair, if at all. She attended Ramaz, SAR, and Barnard, and is a dancer. She's open to conservative, modern Orthodox liberal, and maybe modern Orthodox middle-of-the-road types of guys. AY is modern yeshivish. He attended Emek, Valley Torah High School, and Fairleigh Dickinson. He's an entrepreneur. And he wants someone that will fully cover their hair with a shadel, only wear skirts, ideally should be yeshivish or modern Orthodox machmir. So again, on paper, if you're just comparing kind of the stats, they didn't see so much of a fit. But when they met together at a weekend, everything changed. So that was an interesting case of Anna and AY, that sometimes it's more than just the facts on paper. Next, there's a very big change in attitude in society today. And in some ways it's scary, but it's going on campuses all over the place, and even beyond campuses as well. And it's called the hookup culture. And for those of you who've never heard of it, it is a serious matter today. Wikipedia goes ahead and defines what a hookup culture is. It's basically a culture where one accepts and encourages casual sexual encounters, including one-night stands and other related activity, which focus on physical pleasure without necessarily including emotional bonding or long-term commitments. This is very, very prevalent on all campuses today. And we'll go into how, unfortunately, people are not considering the downside of it. Obviously, they're getting physical pleasure, that they're accomplishing. But with the rise of the hookup culture, there comes an overall change in the dating mentality after that. Today, since it's less about dating for getting married, and rather finding someone for the fun of the moment, the average 20 to 30-year-old is really using their smartphone to, instead of finding a good idea, they just want to find someone whose physical appearance is appealing to them. They start texting, they meet at a bar, they mumble through a little conversation. They text their friends in between this conversation, by the way. It's not just between the other person. And then they possibly return to the other person's apartment for a late night sexual encounter. And this process repeats itself again and again and again. Journalist Sabrina Weil asserts that casual teen attitudes towards sex reflect their confusion about what's normal behavior. Unfortunately, then, they're facing an intimacy crisis that will haunt them for all their future relationships. So they are accomplishing what they want to do. They're having fun at the moment, but unfortunately the effects are long-term. In addition, women obviously are participating along with men. Women have another challenge they have to overcome, and that's biology. And what the biology is, the biological difference is women are a bigger loser for one simple reason, that they're fooling themselves into thinking that casual sex can be left in the casual sex category and not end up attaching. Why? They release oxytocin during their sexual encounter. Oxytocin is known as the bonding hormone, a cuddle chemical, which in general in biology or in evolution, that's a good thing. You want to be attached to the other person. But unfortunately in this case, since you don't want to get attached to the person, when that is released, it's going against what your goal is here. So women, despite the fact they're participating in this, they're getting hurt more often because biology is just working against them in that case. Another problem that was caused also by this general hookup culture is that unclear intentions and confusing signals are being sent. It's leading to a clear fear of commitment. Clear fear of commitment. And why is this occurring? Well, if you're not sure if this is just a hookup or a long-term relationship, your Darwinian side doesn't come in and say, I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to protect myself and make sure I don't get attached, or I'll try not to get attached. And the reason is I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt again and again, so I have to protect myself. So there doesn't appear to be any real dating etiquette anymore, because relationships start with sex before turning into something more substantial. It can be rather difficult in figuring out where one line ends and where maybe the next part of the relationship should begin. This lack of defining characteristics and this sheer amount of repression or suppression of emotion that they were trying to do leads to a lot of turmoil inside the individual. Again, you're trying not to be attached. You're saying, I'm not going to be attached because if I do, maybe they're still in this other zone of just wanting to be in a physical relationship. It's causing problems. The idea of a date where a woman formally asks out a man, that's kind of falling by the wayside more and more to more of just, again, the hookup culture. Many, unfortunately, simply slip or tumble from one dating situation to another, from one person's bed, unfortunately, into another. And this confusion or repression inadvertently leads to the fear of commitment. For the part that I just said a little bit earlier, I don't know when that person really wants to get serious, so I'll just protect myself. Society needs a Yodaism, and the Yodaism here would go along some of the lines of no. There is no in between. We are dating or we're not dating. There is no quasi-dating, because that's where everyone is getting stuck today, in this quasi-zone. They don't know if they are or they're not dating. If there was more clarity among the dating population today, it would make it much easier for someone to find the right person. So fear of commitment, that's another major issue that's being caused indirectly by the general hookup culture. There are also demographics that are working against the population as a whole. Again, in this case, women. What's happening? The overall community, thank God, as the population as a whole is growing. Every year there are more people born than the year before. So if we take a very simple mathematical case here, where in year 1 we have 2 people that were born, year 2, 3, 4, etc. Just a very simple way to do it. And the way it works traditionally in dating is guys are usually dating someone a few years younger than them. Let's take a case of only 3 years. And what happens in a case where a man dates women that are typically 3 or 4 years younger than them? In this case, the year 1, there were only 2 men that were born. Therefore, if they're dating someone 3 years younger than them, there will be 3 women that cannot find a man to marry in this case. Obviously, by the way, if everyone stopped giving birth, then that would start evening out a little bit more. But the fact that there are more and more men and more women being born every year, that gap continues to cause a problem. And that is a major issue. That's purely a demographic issue. There have been a lot of efforts to try to push what's called the overall age gap, where men are dating the same age women as themselves. It's a nice effort, but unfortunately people are going to date who they want to date. And if they feel they want to date someone 3 years younger and that woman is interested, they're not going to say no either. So that same problem will occur the next year, where again 3 women are able to find somebody to marry, and 3 women would go ahead in this case and not find somebody to marry. So there is the idea of the age gap, and that has been studied quite a bit. There's an UTJ program that has looked into that extensively and has tried to go ahead and push people to try to date to more of their age. Match.com, as I mentioned earlier, the largest online dating site, also paints a bleak picture as well, in the fact that there are 86 unmarried men for every 100 unmarried women. So again, there is an imbalance between men and women as far as the number of men that are available to every woman that is available. There are some cultural issues that play into this as well. The venues that were in the past are not available today. And what do I mean by that? If you go into the more observant, Orthodox, yeshivish type of communities, you go back a generation ago, even among the yeshivish communities, there was mixed seating among the singles. And people say, oh, what's the big deal? If for religious reason they're stopping that. Well, unfortunately, they're also causing a side effect, which is there's not a natural environment for men and women to meet there. And that's a big loss, in my opinion. Secondly, there were upstate hotels that were all over the place upstate. There were Grossinger's, there was the Concord, the Browns Hotel. I see people shaking their heads. You probably know about these hotels, and people used to meet there the entire summer. It was a great way to meet. These have all disappeared. So unfortunately, again, an environment that was prime for people to meet has completely gone. Next, we are very lucky today in the United States. The Jewish community can participate in all areas of life, all professions, politics. It doesn't make a difference. We have the opportunity to participate. Go back a few generations ago and compare that to the shtetl, everything was very homogenous back then. The type of people you would meet were very much similar to yourselves. Today, I can go on and get a master's in science at Columbia, and a female can go on and be on the California and get a master's in journalism and pursue their careers, and the thought process and the interests might be very different from one another, where if we were in the same shtetl, we might have been very similar to each other, we might have been appropriate. So what's happening is we're fragmenting our interests. So it's becoming harder and harder to find somebody that's similar to what I'm looking for today. So there are many more opportunities, but it's getting harder and harder to find those type of people. Next, girls are too picky, boys are too picky. I've heard it all. The reality is, it's okay to be picky if the type of person that you're looking for is out there. Quite often, they're looking for the Martian that doesn't actually exist. And that's the problem. That too often, people are describing an individual that just does not exist. And unfortunately, I've seen those people change their requirements slowly as they get older, but unfortunately, they're still lagging reality. Last item that I've seen from a cultural standpoint is an interesting one that's really not discussed very much, and that's the number of Balei Tshuvot women far exceed the number of Baalei Teshuvot men. So what happens is, there's an idea that women traditionally have a more spiritual neshama. That's just what is supposedly said. True or not, I'm not going to go into that. That's supposedly what's said. If you look at the number of Baalei Teshuvot, that supports that concept. There are many more women who are becoming more devoted to Judaism at any level that might be than there are men. So if somebody is a particular religious level, whether it's conservative, conservadox, mono-orthodox, yeshivish, as they get older, there are more women that are coming into that population segment. So besides the fact there are less men to date, besides the fact that the age gap is contributing to that, you now also have a new group of population that's entering as well, that's again causing an imbalance in the number of women to the number of men. And that is, from what I've seen, a tremendous factor. And I've spoken to a lot of organizations that work in helping people get more devoted to their Judaism, and they all confirmed that if they're dealing with a co-ed audience, they traditionally have more women than men. So, is there awareness in the community about the challenges that people are experiencing as far as finding their bashert, their match? Definitely. As early as 2003, I noticed articles. Going back online, that's when I've seen them. As going back to 2008, it's all over the place. People are talking about the shidduch crisis. Whether you call it the shidduch crisis or just a problem getting married, it doesn't matter. People are having challenges in finding the right person. If they don't want to get married, that's okay. No one should force anybody to get married. That's not a shidduch crisis if they like to remain single. What is a crisis is if they're looking for somebody and they can't find that person, then that's a problem. And those challenges are increasing, no matter what you want to call it. How can people go ahead and improve their odds? I've painted a picture that is, in fact, more challenging than it was in the past. So are there things that people can do to hopefully improve their odds? And the answer is yes. Number one, people have to understand there's a psychological impact to the Tinder effect, to going out there and just hooking up. And people have to emphasize that to anyone, any of their friends, family members, or anybody else. That has to be done. Whether they want to stop it or not, that's their business. But at least let them understand that there's a side consequence for just getting pure physical pleasure today. Next, focus. The FOMO effect, as I described earlier, the fear of missing out. You're not going to change that in society. No one's going to be able to do that. That is a societal issue. But maybe there's a way to work within that societal issue to go ahead and teach people to use that and also focus at the same time. And we'll get back to the case of Anna and AY that I described earlier. Anna, when she went on the Seneca weekend, the come back to camp, Dynamite You At Sinai weekend that we actually run, Anna had an interesting philosophy, an interesting idea of how she was going to approach this weekend. It was a 4-day weekend. You get there on Friday and leave on Monday. She decided that from the Friday until she got there until Saturday night, she was going to live in the FOMO world. She was going to fear of missing out. She was going to flirt with everybody. Every single guy that she could meet, she was going to flirt with for those 24 hours. She was going to meet as many people as possible. But on Saturday night, she was going to flip a switch. She was going to find the guy that she found the most in common with and spend the rest of the weekend with that guy. It just happened to be the guy she found was AY, the guy she had gone out with the week before. But it was an interesting effect. She didn't try to suppress FOMO. She didn't go ahead and try to say, I'm not going to try to meet other people. I'm just going to try to go out with this guy again. She went ahead and fed that need, but then realized that she needs to focus as well. The story actually gets better, though, because she gave this advice to go ahead and meet as many people as you could to Jessica this past year. With Labor Day just passed, and Jessica on Monday morning came up to me and said that Anna had given her this advice to meet as many people as she could and then go ahead and focus on one guy. And she wanted to let me know that she did this, she met a great guy, and she's extremely optimistic about where things might go afterwards. So she took her friend's advice. She went ahead and met as many people as she could, but then decided to focus. So teach people to focus. They don't have to eliminate the idea of trying to meet as many people as possible, but at a certain point, you got to switch over and try to go ahead and focus on one person. Location, where you live does matter. The good news is that New York and Washington, D.C. are the two areas that have the greatest number of singles. New York, as you all know, has the greatest number of Jewish singles. Actually, I think California is second to that, but New York is definitely right up there. And as a result, it's easier to find somebody who is single in New York. 50% of all adults in New York area are single. 70% if you're living in Washington, D.C. So you can increase your probability by living in a good area. I was actually living in Bristol, England before I met my wife. There's not too many Jews there. I don't advise it to anyone who's single to go ahead and live there. So definitely go ahead and try to live somewhere where there are other people you can meet. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't go ahead and push what I think is the advantage of You At Sinai and what I think has led to the 2,600 plus people getting married. And that is having a knowledgeable and skilled and impartial intermediary. And why is that important? For all the reasons that we described earlier of what's going on in society today. If you don't have somebody that can help you cull out people, you'll be stuck in finding the next person, finding the next person, finding the next person. If you don't have someone to help you focus, again, it could cause a problem of looking for the next person. If you don't have someone to ensure there's accountability, too often, again, when there's a hookup culture, you go ahead and go out, there's no accountability. If you include an intermediary, there's an accountability as far as when you're going out on a date. There's accountability to go ahead and call the person. Too often, there are dates, blind dates that are set up where the guy never bothers to call the girl. So if there's accountability, there's somebody there to ensure that up front the right actions are being taken. And then during the dating process, where they're having those fear of commitment, where they're having the fear of what if, and is this normal, having somebody else there is a helpful aspect as well. So that's why I think having a matchmaker, a connector, a facilitator, a dating coach, whatever you want to call it, is very important for people to have today. Many people meet without it, but there are many factors in the society that go ahead and cause challenges that those people, those impartial individuals who are being trained on a regular basis can help a person out. Thank you, and that's it for that.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.